The story begins in a small house where Lida and her father, Mr. Darius, are living in difficult conditions. Lida is a young girl with a disability who has to use old crutches to move, but she always carries an extraordinary energy. Although her legs can't run like normal people, Lida has always dreamed of doing something big to help her father, who is seriously ill and needs money for treatment. One morning, as Lida prepares to participate in the marathon, she silently tells her that she is not running for herself, but for her father. This was the only chance she could do anything to save him. Before leaving the house, Mr. Darius, despite his weak health, smiled and told her, "Go to school. Don't let yourself be too tired." "I'm worried." Lida just nodded, trying to hide her feelings in her heart, and left with crutches in her hand, determined not to give up. Arriving at the competition area, Lida stood in the middle of a crowd of healthy athletes, her disabled legs making her the center of attention, and pitiful eyes and whispers around her were inevitable. But Lida doesn't care. She has only one goal: to overcome it all, to win, to save her father. Mr. Darius, despite his weak health, always gave all his love and attention to Lida. Despite his difficult life, he always tries to create a warm and loving space for his daughter. Every day, he takes care of Lida wholeheartedly, teaching her how to face difficulties, never giving up. The image of him supporting Lida step by step, even though his legs were weak, was always engraved in her heart. When Lida was a child, he would hold her in his arms whenever she was struggling and tell her stories of resilience and perseverance. Mr. Darius carved the words, "Never give up," on the wooden crutches himself, reminding her every time she faced a challenge that no matter how difficult it was, she had to keep walking. Even though he didn't have much money, he always tried to bring Lida boundless love. He was the greatest source of encouragement in her life, someone Lida always wanted to do everything to take care of and protect. Every time Lida felt exhausted, the image of him appeared in her mind, becoming a motivation to help her continue the arduous journey ahead. His sacrifice and unconditional love for Lida was a bright fire that illuminated her path, helping her to overcome. One day, disaster suddenly struck Lida's family when Mr. Darius became seriously ill. Although he always tries to keep his spirits up so as not to worry Lida, his health is deteriorating. Lida noticed a noticeable change in her father, but did not dare to ask for fear of making him sadder. She could only silently watch him struggle with pain, her heart tightening every time she saw him suffer without being able to help. The cost of treatment became more and more expensive, and Lida's family began to fall into a difficult situation. In those days, Lida not only had to take care of him, but also had to take care of her daily life. Meanwhile, his illness worsened, leaving him unable to take care of himself. Lida feels like everything is falling apart, but she knows that she can't fall, because she has her father, and only she can help him through this difficult period. The feeling of helplessness at seeing her father in pain without being able to do anything makes Lida sink into a deep sadness. However, it was at this moment that the love and perseverance that Mr. Darius had taught her since childhood flared up in her like a fire that never went out. Lida is determined not to let her father suffer anymore and begins to find ways to earn money for his treatment, including hard work that she never imagined. Under the appearance of strength and resilience, Lida faces difficulties unknown to anyone. Although she always had a smile on her face and did everything to keep her father from worrying, deep down, Lida felt an extreme loneliness. She always had to hide the physical and mental pain she had to endure. The disabled legs made it difficult for Lida to do all her daily activities, but she didn't dare to complain, because she knew her father was battling the disease. Every morning, Lida still tries to get up early to prepare breakfast for her father, taking care of him like a good mother. She knew that he was battling the weakness of his body, but every time she saw him smiling because she was still happy, Lida felt a glimmer of hope. However, she could not hide the pain of having to do everything in a state of physical exhaustion. She still quietly bandages the wounds on her weak legs and continues to face the challenges of life, just because she doesn't want her father to know that she is struggling day by day. Lida always tries to keep herself strong, but sometimes she feels so tired that she can't continue. The anguish of seeing my father suffer is not only a physical burden, but also a mental burden. However, every time she felt like she was about to fall, she remembered what her father had taught. No matter how difficult it is, you must always be resilient, never give up, and it is these teachings that have helped Lida overcome every difficulty, step by step on the path full of difficulties. Lida and her father face growing financial difficulties. Although Mr. Darius did all he could to maintain his life, illness and poor health prevented him from working for a long time. Money became a burden on Lida's thin shoulders. She knew that without a stable financial source, they wouldn't be able to get through the day, especially when Darius needed medical treatment. At such times, Lida couldn't help but feel sorry for herself, but she also didn't dare to express her worries. She always does everything she can to save every penny, from eating poorly to limiting unnecessary needs. On long nights, Lida would sit beside her father, thinking about the dim future, and at those times she could not help but feel lonely, when there was only father and son helpless in the little house. Sometimes, when she sees the children in the neighborhood happily running around, Lida can't help but wonder if her life will ever get easier. She knew that her father was still trying to carry it all quietly, even though his health was not the same as before. He didn't want Lida to worry anymore, but Lida found her father's sacrifice to hurt her even more. She knew that money would not always solve all problems, but not having money meant that she would not be able to take care of Darius's health. However, Lida didn't want to let this financial hardship affect her father's spirit, so she could only quietly try. Every time she thought about not having enough money to treat her father, Lida's heart seemed to cut into pieces. She tried to hide those feelings, but sometimes unconscious tears still fell on her cheeks. She promised herself that she would not give up, that she would fight to the end to find a way to help her father, no matter how difficult life was. Lida's life has reached a breaking point, when physical and mental pain accumulates into a heavy mass that cannot be endured anymore. For a long time, she has persevered in facing difficulties, from taking care of her father to trying hard to study. But more and more, she felt like she was in front of a deep abyss, not knowing where to fall. Lida's fatigue comes not only from a weak body due to a congenital disease, but also from mental exhaustion. She couldn't help but feel helpless when all her efforts seemed unable to change the situation. Every time she sees her father weakening, his difficult steps make Lida even more heartbroken. The times Lida picked up the crutches and walked, she felt like her body was shattering. Each step was heavy. Her hands trembled and couldn't hold on. Extreme fatigue enveloped her, but she couldn't stop. Lida begins to see that everything she does doesn't seem to be enough. She gave her best, but that perseverance didn't seem to bring the expected results. At those times, she just wanted to let go of everything. The tears that had not been allowed to fall for a long time could no longer be controlled. She sat alone, in a dark room, a sense of abandonment and loneliness engulfing her. Although she loved her father dearly, at times, Lida wondered if she could continue to rise, if the sacrifices were worth it when everything around her seemed to be falling apart. But in those desperate moments, the image of her father appeared in her mind again. She remembers the words of encouragement, the times her father comforted her when she fell. Lida understood that no matter how exhausted, no matter how painful, she couldn't give up. She couldn't let her father suffer any longer. It was her father's love and sacrifice that was the biggest motivation for Lida to stand up, even though everything around her became blurry. Lida realizes that if she collapses now, she won't be able to help her father, and their dreams will forever be unfulfilled promises. She took a deep breath, wiped away her tears, and decided to keep fighting, no matter how arduous the road ahead was. In the midst of everything that seems impossible to continue, a small flash of light suddenly shines into Lida's life, giving her hope and strength to overcome unimaginable difficulties. It all started with a marathon that Lida accidentally participated in, even though she knew that her health could not be compared to other athletes. Lida decided to enter the contest not for the sake of winning, but for a single reason: she wanted to save her father. Although her legs were weak, and the wooden crutches were always a companion, Lida didn't let those things stop her. She is not running to win, but to prove that nothing is impossible if you have enough faith and determination. When the gunfire rang out, the crowd rushed forward like arrows, leaving Lita behind. Her limp and heavy steps were not easy. Each step seemed to pierce the bone marrow. But Lita didn't care, didn't let fatigue or pain knock her down. Images of his father came to mind again, with words of encouragement from him. "You can fall, but never give up." It was those words that seemed to give her strength, helping her continue to walk on the thorny road. When she is almost exhausted and unable to move on, an old friend accidentally appears, seeing her in a difficult situation. Lita's story was quickly shared on social media, and the power of the story spread like a flame. Hundreds of people came to cheer her on, standing along both sides of the road and forming a path leading to the finish line. Lita no longer felt alone, as everyone clapped, encouraged, and called her name. It felt like the whole world was on her side, creating a powerful new belief. She continued step by step, slow but determined, to finally finish in the cheers of the crowd. Not only did Lita win the competition, but she triumphed over herself, overcame all limits, and touched hope. That spark not only came from the finish line of the contest but also from the perseverance and steadfastness that Lita had proven. She not only triumphed over adversity, but also became a powerful inspiration for all those who have difficulties in life. Lita's story doesn't stop at winning the marathon. After she crossed the finish line and received the grand prize, an even bigger miracle happened. Lita's perseverance and courage have touched the hearts of millions of people. Her story was widely shared, and immediately, people around her continued to support Lita's family. With the prize money and donations from the community, Mr. Darius, Lita's father, had the opportunity to have surgery and rehabilitate. After months of treatment, he was able to walk on his own and live a healthier life. Meanwhile, Lita not only continued her education but also became a famous doctor, with the desire to help the poor and sick. But what is even more special is her compassionate action. Lita decided to use most of the donations to help poor children and needy families who are facing the same challenges her father and daughter went through. She also established a charity fund called Never Give Up, with the goal of supporting children with disabilities and disadvantaged children to go to school. With the growth of the charitable foundation, Lita has helped thousands of children and families in need, spreading the message of love, perseverance, and compassion. She herself, from a little girl with unhealthy legs, has become a flame of hope for many people. Lita became not only a talented doctor, but also a model of life will and compassion. Finally, as she looked back on the journey she had traveled, she realized that nothing is impossible if you don't give up. Not only did Lita do it for herself, but she also helped many others believe that, as long as she didn't give up, a miracle would come. Lita's father and son live happily and peacefully, no longer having to worry about finances or health. Although life is still difficult, they have found the greatest joy in love and companionship that never leave. Lita always remembers the old wooden crutches, with the words, "Never give up," as a testament to her father's boundless sacrifice and a journey to overcome all challenges. And since then, Lita's story has become a powerful symbol of her will to live and her dedication to the community, inspiring generations to come.